Storied History with the Irish. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Bowtie Talks. I'm your host, Luke Johnson, coming to you from my undisclosed location in Midwest USA, hoping you will enjoy our little stroll through American history. Now, for those of you who don't know, March is Irish Heritage Month. And as someone of Irish descent, I can think of no better way to start my podcast and to bring Irish Heritage Month to a close than a discussion on Irish American history and Irish immigration in this country. Now, for those of you who don't know, the America has quite a storied history with the Irish. In fact, some of the Irish immigrants came here during the American Revolution. And one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence, Charles Carroll, was the grandson of an Irishman. He was also the only Catholic signer of the Declaration of Independence. However, most of the immigrants that came to the United States at that time were Protestants from the northern portion of Ireland. The United States would not see another more famous influx of Irish immigrants until the 1840s. The Great Potato Famine caused much heartache on the Great Emerald Isle. Downy mildew had made the soil unbearable for potatoes, which caused much stress in Ireland. Potatoes were one of a few crops that could grow in Irish soil. When the potatoes were pulled up, they gave off a reddish-brown mucus and were entirely inedible. This would be most devastating in a country where, at the time, potatoes were part of breakfast, lunch, and dinner. On average, the Irishmen consumed 14 pounds of potatoes a day, and Irish women consumed 11.2 pounds of potatoes. Desperate times called for desperate measures, and Ireland turned to the motherland, England, for support. England did very little, as British lawmakers were afraid that help would interfere with the free market. So with nowhere else to turn, the Irish looked to America. To say things were dim would be a harsh understatement. During this time, Ireland lost a quarter of its population. Roughly 1 million people died and 2 million people left Ireland. Roughly 5,000 boats transported Irish immigrants to America. What separated this exodus from other immigrations before was Irish women and children were leaving. Prior to this, most of the Irish immigrants who came to America were men. The people left Ireland in packs. 5,000 ships were used to transport them to the New World. Most of the ships were cargo vessels that had been converted very minimally to hold passengers. The conditions aboard the vessels were absolutely abysmal. It was definitely not a luxury cruise. The trip to the New World took roughly 4 weeks. Many of the people had spent their last cents to board the ships. The passengers were hungry, sick, and treated little better than livestock. The air aboard the ship was tainted with a rancid smell. The vessels would soon earn a new nickname: coffin ships. Nearly a quarter of the 85,000 passengers aboard the 5,000 ships would not make it to America. The bodies of the deceased were wrapped in cloth, weighted down with rocks, and tossed overboard where they would rest at the bottom of the sea. I wish I could say the Irish immigrants were welcomed with open arms, but sadly that is not the case. While some Irish people did fund their own transport, some were funded by British landlords who thought that it would be cheaper to send their tenant farmers to another continent than it would be to give them charity. And many Americans agreed. The British landlords did not send over the best of people. These people were not like the Scots-Irish immigrants who came here to fight the American Revolution and settled the frontier. They saw them as dirty, unskilled, illiterate refugees, and worse, they were Catholic. They came here at a time when some of the oldest citizens could still remember burning effigies of the Pope on bonfire night when America was still owned by the British. Some Protestants went as far as developing a conspiracy theory that the Pope and his army would land on American soil, take over the government, and set up a new Vatican in Cincinnati. Not making this up, Protestants will believe almost anything. Some Americans were so worried about a Catholic influence, they started a new political party. In 1849, a clandestine fraternal organization called the Order of the Star-Spangled Banner, and it was because of this anti-Catholic prejudice that many Irishmen could not find jobs. The secret society later grew enough power to form a new political party called the American Party. This party was also known as the Know-Nothings because when the members were asked about their political beliefs, they would simply reply, "I know nothing." During the time period, it became very common to see signs on windows that read, "Help wanted, Irish need not apply," and to find the same thing in newspaper want ads. Or you might find words like "Protestant only," "Protestants preferred," "must be Protestant." Irish people that could find jobs were not very lucky. They dug ditches, laid sewer pipes, laid railroad tracks. The job was so dangerous it was said that every railroad tie had an Irishman buried underneath it. Irish women had the same luck, as they were usually stuck working as cooks and maids. This is also how the Irish cop stereotype was started, because when many Irishmen settled in larger areas where there would not be jobs as pipe layers or railroad workers, many of them joined the police force because people wanted to keep the population down and the Irish saw it as having some level of standing in the community. During this time, the Irish also had a chance to prove themselves to their neighbors. When the Civil War broke out, many Irishmen signed up to join the battle. They fought for both the Union and the Confederacy, but the majority fought for the Union as most of the Irish settled in the northern states. And interestingly, in the southern states, some Irishmen were given jobs that were seen as too dangerous for slaves. All but another reason to fight for the Union. It's shown us one thing about the Irish, it's that they love a good fight. All in all, 150,000 Irishmen fought during the Civil War. Ireland also produced more high-ranking officers on both sides of the army during the Civil War than any other ethnic group. 12 Union and 6 Confederate generals were Irishmen. The Irish also went a step above during the Civil War, and many of them made their own battalions. 69th New York, the 35th Indiana, just to name a few. It should also be noted that the mascots for Notre Dame University get their name from the 69th New York. Robert E. Lee referred to the 69th New York Battalion as "those fighting Irish." Ended there, but once again I can't. Sadly, in many places in the Northeast, if there was a history of crime in the neighborhood and your family happened to have a last name like O'Malley, McLaughlin, or any other name that sounded vaguely Irish, you could possibly get arrested during that period. When they were elected in Massachusetts, the Know-Nothing Party went to work right away. King James Bible mandated reading in all public schools. They would later take their power one step further. In 1854, a group of Know-Nothings grabbed Jesuit priest John Baptist into the streets, stripped him of his clothes, and tarred and feathered him. That same year, in the town of Bath, Maine, Know-Nothings walked into a Catholic church and smashed the pews. When the Washington Monument was being constructed, Pope Pius IX sent a cornerstone to Washington, D.C. The Know-Nothings heard about it and dropped the cornerstone into the Potomac River. Abraham Lincoln was among many Americans who found issue with the party of Know-Nothings. Lincoln was staunchly against the American Party and wrote in an 1855 letter, "However, nothing lasts forever, and the Know-Nothing Party was disbanded after the mid-1850s, and the Irish would find their voice, like so many others, at the ballot box." William R. Grace was elected the first Irish-American Catholic mayor of New York City in 1880, and Hugh O'Brien became the first Irish Catholic mayor of Boston, Massachusetts in 1884. But those are just a few of many great Irish Americans who've came in the years before us. Many great Irish Americans have also made great contributions to the arts, the sciences. Such great men like George M. Cohan, famous songwriter, Nick called the man who owned Broadway, President John F. Kennedy, the great actor Pat O'Brien, and James Cagney was Irish, not Jewish, as many people have said. And an Irishman made a great contribution not just for America but for the world. Chocolate milk was invented by Irishman Hans Sloane, a botanist. Well, that about wraps up all the time we have. I hope you've enjoyed this little stroll through American history about the contributions the Irish have made to American history and the many struggles they've faced over the years in this country. And I can think of no better way to close this program than with the traditional Irish blessing. May the road rise up to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face. The rains fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand. Goodbye, and God bless.